right, the link is back here, everybody. The midpoint of the week, and certainly there's a lot going down in our friends at the legislature and everything. They're in the middle of the budget hearings, which means they're throwing around a lot of concepts, a lot of numbers, a lot of opinions, and someone right in the middle of that, by virtue of his role as a minority
around concepts, Jay?
Huh? What?
They're throwing around concepts and what? What do you say?
Concepts and numbers and opinions about, because we reported yesterday that they said, senators now are looking at exactly what are the revenue projections from the BPT. And so now that they're...
I thought they were just playing verbal jujitsu with Lester Carlson.
That's another way to put it. Nice sports analogy. But,
right.
But certainly from his vantage point, Minority Leader Chris Duenas has a lot to consider and everything. So he very graciously joins us now in the KUM News Zoom room. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Chris and Bree and Jason, and I'm going to say that I'm Team Steve Guerrero.
Okay, nice. Pick a side. Yeah. There you go, right off the... We were just talking about tiger sharks and everything like that, so certainly there are some sharks in the water, metaphorically, when it comes to this budget thing, right, Senator?
I want to make a pronouncement on KUAM this morning. If the budget ceiling, if the BPT is raised by $50 million, I'm an automatic no on this budget. Let me tell you something, guys. The first question I asked Steve Guerrero, who I've worked with for over 18 years, I trust his numbers. The first thing I asked him was, your adopted revenue levels, does it reflect the governor's request and all agencies in terms of the ceilings? And he said yes. I have no reason to doubt that, and I have no reason to believe that we should raise the revenues by $50 million at this point. This morning I was listening to Dave De La Sola. We should have had him join the fiscal team because he's the most sober guy in the room right now, basically saying, look guys, in 2 weeks, this PUA and FPUC is over. That $1 billion injected into our economy is done. Thousands of people, out of jobs. If you look at even nationwide now, the market today is down because consumer spending and spending even stateside has taken a much deeper dip than they thought. And we're still in the summertime. That's gotta be reflective of the fact that even the people stateside that are not gonna be receiving PUA and FPUC and some of the government assistance and the stimulus is starting to wane. That absolutely has to be reflective of spending power. I do not see any scenario where, the BPT is going to increase. This one snapshot in July, Chris and Bree, what bothers me about that is, if you look at, you had a bump in corporate and you had a bump in BPT, right? But this is right on the eve of the extended tax season, right? We didn't have taxes due until, I believe, May 17th. So you had corporate and corporations that were paying their taxes and the like, probably to make sure they can get their business license and everything else going forward. And you had economic activity, yes. But let's be realistic here. Even when we do the government realignment, we based it on 3 consecutive months of the CRER dipping below the 3% threshold. Why would we take one snapshot? And by the way, Chris and Bree, the special funds are down by $18 million. So even that $8 million bump in the general fund is dwarfed by a $10 million, that's a $10 million difference in terms of the loss in special funds. I asked Ed Byrne directly, straight on every one of those single special funds, where do you get the money? A lot of those special funds have debt service. For example, the Tourist Attraction Fund. We all know that we took out the hot bond for millions of dollars, and we have to pay debt service through GBB, and that has to be subsidized by the general fund. It's just beyond me. I'm shocked that the legislature would even think about raising the revenue.
Hi. Well, how do your colleagues feel in the minority?
I know the Republican caucus is pretty darn united on this one. We were all just shaking our heads yesterday when we started to hear some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle saying, they're going to take some of this optimistic view. I like Steve Guerrero's term, prove me wrong. I've been doing this for a long time. Prove me wrong. We can come in anytime and raise revenues, Chris and Bree. That is nothing. That's the easiest thing to do. That's like we were talking with Jason earlier. That's like going to Disneyland, right? But reducing revenues, that's like going to have your tooth extracted, right? So why would you do it? I mean, let's at least see. And another thing I'm really concerned about, we're basically, as far as I'm concerned, double appropriating the EITC reimbursement. If you look at the schedule that's there in terms of how we're preparing for tax refunds, 74 million is the bottom line number. That's taking in consideration the reimbursement of EITC. And then no more than 4 lines down from that, when we go into the language of the budget, when we've adopted the revenues, we're putting aside money for the Center of Excellence for medicine, right? For the hospital and all the other projects. We're putting aside 5 million for the prison. And then we get around to saying, okay, whatever's left over can go into tax refund account. It doesn't make any sense. A long time ago, the legislature used to do what was called an authorization. Authorization without an appropriation. That's what got the government of Guam in trouble before. That was stopped. You have to appropriate and you have to back it up with revenues. You don't authorize, because if you don't have the money, it's not going to come to be. And so I think we should go, and I asked the panel this, I think we should go 1 full fiscal year with this EITC reimbursement and then sit down at the table. Because whether it's a reimbursement based on how we, bill the government, the federal government basically by saying, okay, we paid out this much, give us this much money this quarter, or whether it's a trust fund that's dropped on our lap, that's here's the full 55 million, we don't know. That's prudent budgeting, is budgeting from what you know, not from what you don't know.
What about this Army Corps of Engineer press conference you were in yesterday, Senator?
I thought that was an excellent presentation. As we know in government does some things good, some things not so good. I think the Army Corps of Engineers, this is really one of their, their signature strengths. They basically did this charrette, as they call it, for the Naval Hospital. They do it nationwide in terms of as part of a planning process for, large projects like this, large, CapEx projects. And I think it's definitely something worth taking a look at. I want to thank the congressman for being so gracious and inviting all of us senators to sit down and listen to the proposal. I think basically one thing I appreciated as well, because my question to the Lieutenant Colonel was, is this a process that's basically standalone, or is it tandem with what the jurisdictions are doing? And he said it's absolutely tandem. He said you've got your task force in place, you've got your planning tools that you have now. This is basically just an outside perspective on a large view on how we go about moving forward with large projects. And it's basically really solid technical assistance. One thing I think it also may provide for us, Chris and Bree, is it may provide us a lot more legitimacy when we go in and ask for federal grants and additional resources from the national government to work with us, particularly when it comes to the veterans area, right? We all know that the CBOC has been having a lot of difficulty, and it probably would make sense to have a veterans type of clinic and outpatient stuff on a civilian hospital subsidized by the federal government. That was one of the signature things of the Trump administration when they came in, was to basically deal with a lot of the issues veterans were having because of the long lines and the long waits in terms of government hospitals. And so they said, look, go to the doctor outside and, send us the bill. And it really alleviated a lot of the pressure in terms of veterans healthcare and veterans needs, even when it comes to behavioral, issues with regard to, the difficulties that they have coming back from theater and the like. So I think that, there's a lot of great synergies that we can bring about. And I think having kind of the stamp of approval, if you will, of the Army Corps might be something we would want to do.
What was the difference between like the governor's meeting and the congressman's press conference?
they were invited.
Well, yeah. I don't know how many more invitations the legislature as a whole wants to take to go downtown, because we all know what happened on the last one. We presented a plan and then thank you for the plan and have a nice day.
Put that plan in the shredder. Totally.
Yeah, our plans look almost identical. Wait a minute, I won't show you my plan. But anyways, so basically, I think that really the difference was we were engaging from the legislature and from the congressman's perspective on, is this a complementary opportunity where, maybe what I saw from the governor's perspective is, we'll consider it, but we're trotting forward. So, that's the governor's prerogative. But I think it was more inclusive and more open discussion on the possibilities when it came to the legislature and interacting with Army Corps.
Right, but when you read the release from the governor's office after that meeting with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, it says that she's going to be in the next coming days formally submit a letter of engagement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to assist with planning and oversight assistance with her vision for a medical center of excellence, which she coined Sagan Hinemlu, a place of healing.
Ooh.
And it talks about this whole charrette. So I don't know. It kind of sounds like,
It kind of sounds like there was a competition to see who could be cooler with the Army Corps.
Yeah, I mean, I think the train is coming down the tracks, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're looking at the congressman. This is what he does, right? He advocates for us in Congress. I mean, he was so instrumental in making sure, and in fact, he made the report yesterday that everything that he requested from Guam in the infrastructure proposal has been included in the current bill that's being debated now in Congress. So once again, I mean, get on board. The train's running down the tracks. I think it's a great thing. I was pretty much more talking about the level of engagement, right? So I was almost, Nestor was there. I think it was almost 2 hours, an hour and a half. And so it was really, I think the dialogue was excellent. The senators had a lot of key questions. And so for me, I mean, we could do a press release too, but I think if you just watch the interaction and the recorded meeting, you'll see that, that we were very engaging and that we took it serious. And I'm not saying it wasn't taken serious on the other side, but I'm just saying that I think our engagement was very, at a high level.
Well.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to see what's going to happen out of all of that.
Yeah, I'm just confused.
We got to admit, I mean, Chris, Bree, you're talking about, right now we're testing what herd immunity is, right? Mm. We know that COVID. I mean, I'm sure we would trade COVID, for not having this billions of dollars coming into Guam, like you said earlier, Chris. It's a blessing, right? But one thing we do have to say is we certainly are at the table right now when it comes to the federal government and getting things done. I mean, if we've got another massive infusion on the infrastructure bill, I mean, Guam is in just such a different place. And maybe that means optimism for fiscal year 2023, but not 2022. But we have got to admit that we certainly have been a part of the family when it's come to this pandemic relief.
Just not the Guam family.
Well, one other thing that I didn't mention about the unprecedented nature at which the governor has had over $3 billion at her disposal going forward in the last 20 months. But now we also are budgeting whereby we have a $603 million savings account sitting right next to that budget. And this is why I'm concerned as well. If we raise the levels, Chris and Bree, there's no reason to exercise fiscal discipline. Having been in government as a director and at the legislature, You know, there's one thing the Office of Finance or the BBMR does as soon as the budget passes. They give you the good news and the bad news. The good news is your ceiling was adopted and you've got your full budget. The bad news is you've got a 15% reserve. So that's what level you get to spend at. If you have overinflated budgets, you don't have to worry about that because the thought of a deficit isn't hounding you. But when you have very conservative numbers, you have to exercise strong and prudent fiscal controls. So one of the things I ran on, guys, when we were sitting here and you were interviewing me, over a year ago, was being a fiscal hawk, but also taking care of the priorities. Most of us on our side of the aisle cannot believe how much customs has been treated like a stepchild as far as we're concerned. We keep asking, are you going to use ARP funds to subsidize their budget? Because they can't even pay their rent. We found out during the interview with Lester that, they're getting rent deferment up at the airport. That's how they're surviving. They're not paying rent. I asked him if he reported that during the time he was doing the refunding over in Washington. He said, in San Francisco, he said, absolutely, disclosure is king. Well, then if he disclosed that a revenue source had fallen off because there's deferment in rent, I thought to myself, maybe because, Chris and Bree were able to get Mr. Kanata to say they're getting $20 million from ARP. So that makes sense, right? If you reported also, the governor's committed $20 million, so that revenue loss is not a big deal. Maybe that ended up being why we were still favorable. But every time that the airport has gone down to the legislature, and every time we've talked about revenue, you can't touch the revenue. Because the minute you do anything to take away any of the revenues, it triggers a bond. The bondholders start taking a look at it, and they can call those bonds at any time. So this is how much and how important it is for us to know what the intentions of the governor is for the ARP. I would be in favor right now of passing a 3-month budget, and we come back after the first quarter. Just to say maybe this budget changes because of your plan. But right now, I am Team Steve Guerrero, and that's the only budget I'm voting for.
There you go. Thank you, Senator.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
Wait, I wanted to ask your thoughts because we didn't get a chance to ask the speaker about the governor requesting that the legislature, the judiciary's already done it, follow her lead in implementing a vaccination mandate within the legislative branch. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so first and foremost, my office is fully vaccinated. These are all individual offices, and the control really is under the majority and the leadership there. But I think the speaker's handled this well. I think she's basically said that, look, let's look at our team internally. Most of these government agencies are right up against the 80% threshold. And like I said, we're testing herd immunity right now. We haven't even discussed, there's not even a figure on how many people can report that they're COVID survivors, which means they have a less likelihood of any, of getting reinfected as well. So I think the legislature's position right now is a responsible position. But I know that also there are internal to offices, they have their own protocols. You can also let an individual work from home right now if you want to, like we were doing during COVID, if they have some issues with regard to getting the vaccine. But I am absolutely not an anti-vaxxer. The vaccine, as Doc said, has absolutely saved us in this situation. We would be in a complete world of hurt right now with this variant and with the spread rate that we have. I think we would be in really big trouble if we didn't have 80% of our adult population eligible. So, but I still think the legislature is taking a very responsible look at it. I know that many offices are like mine. Their staff are fully vaccinated, and I think we're being responsible. Our protocols are really strong, in terms of how we conduct session. So I think the legislature is on the right side of this issue.
Okay. And also before we let you go, I wanted to see if you had any comments with the governor rescinding and then creating her own All Rise program, and the language that was in the executive order basically trashing Bill 75 and
Yeah.
Bill 164, calling it incomprehensible, defies all logic, that the Guam legislature would pass conflicting bills. She said the legislature has proven ill-equipped to pass a law that creates and allows the executive branch to implement a program that gives our people direct aid and also complies with federal mandates regarding the use of ARP funds.
What I don't understand is with that pronouncement, why don't she just veto them and send them back so we can decide which one we want to override? We can send her one back. We can only override one. I mean, come on. Let's be real. That's not a way to work with us. We had two well-intentioned bills. The reason why two bills came out, because I was fighting to make sure it was one bill. The reason why two bills came out, guys, is because there is a difference in the legislature as to whether or not to raise the threshold. That was the only material difference. Everything else was raising the cap to make sure that it's not Hunger Games, first in, first out. Sorry, 30 million's done. You 1,000 people don't get it.
Man.
And the other thing that we did, basically is both bills lightened the restrictions.
Yeah.
Jim's bill, Senator Moynihan's bill, co-sponsored by myself and Tony Yada, wanted to give a little bit more money to the folks. I can't tell you how many times I'm walking in the store, heading down to the boat, going anywhere that I'm going, and people are saying, hey, did the RISE Act, was there some additional money in there? I said, well, we're trying. But if the governor doesn't want to do that, that's fine. Like I said, just veto them both, send it to us, and maybe we might override one of them.
But I mean, Senator, the real reason why you guys introduced those bills is because the governor was complaining that the law didn't allow her to do this or to do that. So she was holding up the law as kind of like her excuse. And you guys went and did this dance and passed these bills with a sense of urgency to get this money. It's just a whole game. She duped you guys into playing a game. So you guys pass these bills, and then she's like, "Oh, I don't like it. No, I'm going to do my own thing."
Right, but also in the executive order, she talked about those bills. They're not even in compliance with the interim guidelines provided by the U.S. Treasury for assistance to households or populations facing negative economic impacts due to COVID-19.
Yeah, but Bree, how do you say that when you don't even have the application process in place? Mm-hmm. How do you know? Chris, Bree, myself, maybe I'm not eligible, no, but I can tell you right now, I'm going to leave the house and drive down the road, and I'm going to see a lot of eligible people on the way down there. So I get a little irritated with, not in compliance. How do you know? You haven't even done the application process yet. You made the application process so arduous that you wouldn't even know. So, I mean, come on. I say open up the program, do what you got to do, let people apply, and then you be the one at Rev and Tax to say who's eligible and not eligible. Right. Yeah. I mean, I know there's competing media, right? But I mean, I just got to say this. I think the Post editorial hit the nail on the head a couple days ago. It straight out said, why can we do car giveaways? Why can we do all these wonderful programs? If we really want to do them, we can stand them up in a second. Yeah. But if we don't want to do something, I tell you, if football season, preseason isn't on now, the goalpost just keeps moving.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and that's the thing is the governor, for whatever reason, didn't want to implement the RISE, and that's so obvious. And all of this subterfuge, if you will, has just been one big fat distraction that she's using to demonize the legislature and I think to further prove her case that you guys aren't even needed. She's the only branch of government is the way I look at how she sees it. It's unfortunate, really, because no one person has all the great ideas.
We said that the whole time. Come on, talk about politicizing here. We've said it the whole time. We don't need the bills. The original RISE Act is not even a public law anymore. The minute she put pen to paper and did the executive order, we were out of it. The only reason why we came back into it is we were being drug into it. Because every single time there was a problem with the RISE Act, it was because of that pesky legislature. So, then we got to work and fixed it. But you can't have it both ways. You either want to do it or you don't want to do it. And don't blame us.
At the end of the day, This is her program now with this other new executive order, and the cap is still going to be $30 million. So if you are eligible, we definitely wish you the best of luck.
Yeah,
because
good luck.
Again, it is first in, first out.
May the best person win.
And she
Are you ready?
expanded the eligibility. So
Yeah.
the people that this was initially intended for,
Mhm.
the people in the private sector that didn't have a job, that was severely economically impacted, you're going to be competing
Yep.
with all the GovGuam employees and retirees. So really, I don't even know how this is going to work. Rev and Tax is going to be meeting with the Mayor's Council of Guam this afternoon because they're not even sure.
Yeah, like I said, if we want to stand up a vax program, we can do it in a minute. Free car, $10,000, whatever else we got to do. But this one, rocket science.
All right, Senator.
Good luck during budget today.
Have fun.
Hey guys, thanks. I hope go team Steve Guerrero.
Aye, a
Thanks,
day.
Senator.
Aye, a day. Hey, it's 9:09. We're coming back with Public Health and Acting Environmental Public Health Officer. She's also the Acting Head of Division of Environmental Health, Leilani Navarro. Also, Major Anton Uggan, as there is a gentleman who was allegedly involved in trafficking major amounts of meth into the island, has